Hey, with your evening story channel, I post new interesting stories every day. Subscribe and click the bell to not miss it. The melody of the phone broke the relative silence at the half-empty restaurant. Charles answered the call. Out of the corner of his eye, he continued to watch his father, and his thoughts remained far away. He spoke quickly to the staff and hid the cell phone. Yes, his father had aged. Shrunk since his mother's death, the young man noted to himself. He's in a lot more pain. I lived with my fiancée for a year and was just about to legalize our relationship. And their God, what a bitter loss. And Charles remembered his Lisa, her clear voice with its gentle notes, her brilliant green eyes that seemed to change color. When the sun was shining, they were like birch trees in the shallows of the sea. And when the weather turned bad, her eyes also turned darker in color, reminiscent of the mysterious depths of the city. He loved this mischievous, snub-nosed girl with her sincere smile, thin lips, and dimples on her chin. 5 months ago, on a warm September morning, his mother and his fiancée Lisa were returning home from a sanatorium. Charles hadn't been able to get out of work to keep them company, but he paid for the vacation. Lisa was supposed to go with a friend, but she had decided to spend her vacation with her lover. At the last moment, she refused. Then she suggested to her mom to have some fun and improve her health. And Lisa wouldn't be so lonely with her mom. And they were on good terms with her future mother-in-law. Nancy called her a daughter right away. She had always dreamed of a girl buying dresses and shoes with stones and pretty hairpins, brushing her long hair and just cuddling, keeping secrets. But God gave 3 sons loved by all her mother's soul and loved equally. The oldest brother, Charles, settled in Canada many years ago. The middle one, Mason, went to live with him. And only the youngest Charles became a reliable support for his parents. Left to live in his native town, and he was the only one of all 3, finally was going to get married, which pleased his mother very much. And the greatest guarantee of their and his daughter-in-law's future friendship was that Charles and Lisa lived apart from their parents. And she never got bored. Nancy did not impose on the young with her advice and wise hints and loudly voiced desire to nurse grandchildren. We traveled by passenger bus. Nothing foreshadowed trouble. The weather was fine until we landed, and Charles and Lisa talked on the phone. He told her how much he and his father missed their women, how they were living on rations and eating convenience foods, and she kept sharing her impressions. What happened a few hours later, I still couldn't get my head around it. A terrible accident in which the driver of the truck was guilty of falling asleep at the wheel. He swerved into the oncoming lane and collided with their bus. The driver and 4 passengers died on the spot. Lisa was one of them. Charles' mom had died in the hospital from her injuries on the 4th day. And now the 2 men sighed absently, each thinking about his own thoughts, and barely looking at the plates of food the waiter had brought them. Dad, I'm worried about you. I think you have something to live for. Charles was the first to break the silence. And who do I have to stay strong for? Jacob and Mason Skype and text every day. And you're not. Mason's getting married in a couple months. We're going to go visit him. And then we'll have grandkids. You've got to get on with your life. Shake it up. Remember how you taught us your sons. Always be a man, patient, strong, resilient. I'm sad every day too, but looking at you, I'm down on myself. Charles, just give me time. My father once again dismissed my mother, and I had a difficult life. We fought sometimes over the smallest things. I don't remember any scandals or quarrels. We were poor, yes. We saved money on everything. And looking at you and my mom, I wanted to live better and richer, of course, but to keep warm feelings based on friendship and trust. Tell me, what's that old tramp hiding behind his mask of decency? Why were you fighting? It was so quiet, I didn't hear it, and none of the kids knew. Charles smiled. I was talking to a woman at work. I liked her. Our new boss at the time, Kelly, often came over to chat with her. Single woman, beautiful, smart with money. What's the rest of the story? She and I had nothing but the attraction of spiritual intimacy. Broke her heart. That's when she quit her job, resigned. I couldn't leave my family, my 3 sons. You were still in school then in the 5th grade, and the older students are both on the paid form of education. Decided to tear love from his heart, sighed the father. Mom didn't know. Did I hear you right? No, she guessed, I think, but she didn't know anything. I didn't say a word. That's why I said that I made a mistake in love, confessing. I have a family, and we broke up. I still feel guilty to this day. I saw Kelly the other day. My heart nearly jumped out of my chest, and then I asked around through mutual friends. She's still single, but I'm ashamed to be in front of you, and she probably hasn't needed me in a long time. And every day in my mind I ask my mom for forgiveness. Listen, Dad, but try calling her for dinner. Invite her and her son. Introduce her to me. I mean, you can't get your mom back, but you have to move on. And you're only 56 years old. Don't worry, I'll support you. Thanks, son. Not right now, but it's a load off my mind to talk to you. Thank you, Charles. Well, you, Dad, have my admiration and respect. A real man. Thank you for a peaceful, cloudless childhood. And that afternoon, walking home, they finally got to talking, started reminiscing. Charles recalled his hooligan childhood and how much trouble he had caused his parents, being the most noisy and restless child. There were no more secrets between them. Time passed, Charles plunged headlong into work. No one waited for him at home, and every weekend he spent with his father and then with their father. And Kelly lived amicably. So imperceptibly flew a whole 15 years. Charles became a big businessman, founder of a real estate firm. Things didn't work out in his personal life, although he was an enviable groom. Recently, he met a woman he really liked, but he was in no hurry to get married. Usually, the relationship lasted a month or a little more, and then the ladies of high society began to get bored and demand either more money or more attention. They met Cindy not at a corporate party, but in the park where Charles went for an evening jog. She dropped her handkerchief from her bag while getting up from the bench, and he caught up with her and returned it. That's how they met. Young lady, what's your name? Cindy. What's yours? Nice to meet you. I'm Charles. Charles is fine. I'm sorry for the impudence, but I'm going to try my luck and ask for your phone number. That's a beautiful name. Well, write it down. Have you tried running in the morning? Well, I'm at work in the morning, and frankly, I don't get much sleep. Yeah, work comes first. I know. You're a real man. And oh my goodness. She didn't ask where Charles worked or who he worked for, so she was interested in the person, not the position. They started dating. Charles realized that this time it was serious. He was in love, so he gave Cindy the keys to his apartment, and they started living together. A month later, he decided to introduce the young woman to his family and convinced her that she did not need to work. He earns more than enough, but fate has saved Charles from a big mistake. Usually, he never traveled to the sites, and is a big boss all days until very late in the evening spent in the office at the office computer. But the situation required his immediate intervention, because the young, inexperienced realtor made a big mistake when concluding the sale of an apartment. Misspelling the name of the future owner, he had to settle everything with a lawyer. When he was finally free and the lunch break was approaching, Charles had the idea to have lunch at home and make a pleasant surprise. He opened the door and listened. She was on the phone with someone and sitting in his office. What made Charles suspicious? After all, he always locked that room. But what surprised Charles the most was that she was sitting in front of his laptop monitor. You see, I don't have access to his work computer. His entire client base is on there. Hacking into that laptop would be a piece of cake. But there's nothing interesting on it. This is the second time I've been through social media, personal correspondence, bulletin board. A lot of garbage. A work computer has better security. How do you envision this? I go to his work. What am I doing there? I'm not interested in his work at all. Just so you know. Well, it's out in the open, really. There's a reason the con artist hooked up with me. It's unpleasant, but it's a good thing she didn't do any damage. Leave my apartment immediately. Cindy flinched. I heard that. We'll call the police. Who are you working for? Your competitors don't need the police. I'll leave. I didn't do my job. Bye. Cindy quickly left the apartment, throwing her keys on the table. A frustrated Charles called the office and said he'd be late. Then he waited for the handyman and changed the locks on the front door. He set up security cameras and alarms on the office door. It was only in the evening that he realized he hadn't eaten anything all day and looked in the refrigerator. He sighed heavily and went to the nearest restaurant. At the entrance, he saw a cleaning lady scrubbing the floors. Surprisingly familiar blue eyes of that beggar woman caught Charles' attention for one brief second. He took the sushi and 2 specialty cheddaricks and nervously walked towards the restaurant's exit. He had already been called and was waiting in the office, but he ran into the same beggar again. She was bent over rinsing a rag in a bucket, and then Charles saw an unusually expensive bracelet, once custom made by a skilled jeweler. For Lisa, on the first anniversary of their acquaintance, there could be no mistake. He had paid a fortune for that piece of jewelry, and Charles suddenly realized that the misadventures of that day were not over. And he grabbed the woman's arm roughly. Where did you get that bracelet? I'm sorry, I don't remember. It's a piece of jewelry from a past life, I think. I had a severe brain injury a long time ago as a result of amnesia. And my common-law husband, whom I never remembered, paid for neurosurgery and then plastic surgery. Come on, let's get in the car and you can tell me everything. I'm sorry, but I have to work. No, honey, you're coming with me. This is the bracelet my future wife was wearing the day of the accident 15 years ago. My gift. Okay, I'll tell you everything. I was in a car accident a long time ago. I survived by a miracle, and only because David wouldn't give up. He pulled me back from the dead. He was 25 years older, had a lot of money. He was a professor of surgery at the medical university, a practicing surgeon at the time. It's bad to live without remembering anything. Emptiness in the soul. But I started to get used to this kind of life, and the bracelet was returned to me with my bloody things. After the surgery, a bracelet, earrings, a necklace with a cross on it. Where's the necklace? The earrings. I sold it all, pawned it all to survive. I only kept the bracelet. David died 6 months ago, the woman continued. And then his heirs, his children, and David's ex-wife swooped in like kites. They threw me out of the apartment. By the way, we never legalized our relationship with David. For several years, I was a bedridden burden, and he was busy working in a cool clinic in the capital. Then students, lectures, defense, professors' thesis. He came home late. I was so grateful for the life I saved that I just never thought of anything more. Now I'm literally on the street. His daughter took over the apartment. They threatened me not to claim any inheritance rights. Otherwise, they'll cripple me again. I've been sitting on their good father's neck for so many years. And where do you live now, Lisa? Looking her straight in those big blue eyes, Charles asked. My name is Molly, said the woman. I can show you some ID, Molly. Your name is Lisa. Make her my fiancée. I don't know how to prove it, but I feel it in my heart. In those days, we were focused on saving our mom. So we buried someone else instead of you. That was probably Molly. We were given back a bag of papers in your name, clothes but no jewelry. You were buried in a closed casket, and I was sure they buried you that way, without taking off your bracelet and chain. We didn't have time for that, I'm sorry. After a short silence, Charles continued. I'm very rich. You don't have to work as a cleaning lady. I can rent a place, an apartment in a good neighborhood. Their conversation was interrupted by a phone call. Yeah, listen. Why don't you close the office tonight? I'll reschedule the meeting for tomorrow. Thank you. The unhappy woman sitting next to me was struggling to come to her senses, as if she had awakened from a long and difficult dream. Tears were running down her face. I couldn't remember David, but your face seemed vaguely familiar. It turns out I was living someone else's life with someone else. Let's just leave it at that. You probably have a family and children. Why do you need a sick and far from young woman? I'm 43, Molly on my passport, but I feel older. How old am I really? Charles gently took her hand. You're 39 and I'm still a bachelor. Let's go. He turned the ignition key and started the engine. There was a tense silence between them. Don't you remember anything at all? Fragments of visions, all very blurry. I remember an old woman with brown eyes like the night before the accident. We had a fight, and I sat away from her in the only empty passenger seat behind me. That's what saved my life, as it turns out. Hey, did I remember you? You didn't give me a name, but I think I know. Your name is Charles, isn't it? Charles felt a treacherous stinging in his eyes. Yes, he replied. That's a strange story, the father said. When they arrived, putting on his glasses and scrutinizing the bracelet. Are you guys sure maybe the hospital messed something up? Chaos, panic, confusion. Molly was given Lisa's bracelet by mistake. But I don't know. There's no other evidence. You're forgetting the most important thing. Their heart will tell them the right thing to do. Coming out of the kitchen, backed up by Charles. Kelly, now let's have dinner and tea. I've heated your cheddaricks and made a potato casserole. Wash your hands and have a seat. You know, Dad quietly approached my father in the kitchen. Charles, even if that woman isn't Lisa, I can't leave her. She's barely surviving on the pittance she gets paid to clean. I know you have a good heart, but have you thought about yourself? What will you say to Cindy? You're going to give up the woman you love. Cindy's daddy's a con artist. I've had a very busy day today. Let me tell you all about it tomorrow. In the morning, he took Lisa to the apartment she rented from a pensioner and helped her with her things, which fit into one small bag. I don't take no for an answer. You'll live with me. I already decided. Can I cook dinner? Lisa asked incredulously. Well, if you can find something to make it with. I'd be very grateful. He looked her in the eye, and suddenly he hugged her, holding her tightly to his heart. I'm so glad I found you, and I missed you so much.